The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
We are excited today. Mike, are you ready?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Okay, this is fantastic. Okay, guys, welcome. Good morning. Today we have two very, very special guests. We have Inspector Andrew Cooper from Peel Regional Police, and we also have Danny Marttini, Constable Danny Marttini. That is from Peel Regional Police. I want to make sure I check myself there.
That was our seventh take, by the way.
Guys, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you.
One of the things that we always meet new people every week, and one of the things that we're always trying to do as an entity, as an operation, is we're trying to contribute to helping people shift their mindsets to get to their goals quicker. And sometimes when you say something as an individual, you just need to get it reinforced or heard back from many places, because sometimes, like, I don't know if I believe what you're saying. I don't know if it makes sense. What do you mean I have to do this to do that? And
sometimes it takes time.
It just takes time.
When your mom says you should shower.
Exactly.
You should shower.
Exactly.
So is that why you're sitting so far away from her?
No, I mean, I'm just saying she said it. Doesn't mean that it was adhered to.
That's right.
But it's true. Over time, sometimes even a message that you should have, it takes time to embrace it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So before we get started, why don't we just do this to kind of break the ice? Let's start off with you,
Arm wrestle?
Inspector Cooper. Why don't we do this? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay.
And then we'll do the same thing with you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I've been a policeman for over 30 years. And this process for me started way back. I was born in London, England, South London, born and raised. And, during that time, in terms of me growing up in England, it wasn't the best of times with respect to the relationship with members of the community, the racialized community and the police. And that kind of propelled me. That kind of dropped the seed with respect to me becoming a police officer.
Okay.
And again, I can speak about my experiences there. But
we're gonna have to go in deeper for that.
Okay.
It's interesting that what you said.
Okay.
Your probably negative experience dropped the seed for you to be a cop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible.
And,
it's amazing.
There's a story there as well.
Yeah.
But from there, I left England and I went over to. I lived in British Columbia. For about 3 years. I lived in a small town called Prince George, and there I saw myself in terms of the first black policeman in Prince George, and I saw myself in that police officer, and that kind of propelled me even further with respect to my dream in terms of being a police officer. And from there, I moved back to England, and I came back to Ontario, and that's when my policing career really took off, based on my few years in security. So I do have a security background as well.
Okay.
Working at Square One Security back in Mississauga back in the day.
Yeah,
Really?
Nice.
Wow.
Shout out to Square One and
Square
all
One.
and all that parking.
Yeah, I remember Square One Intercon Security.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice, man.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I have experience there as well, and it started off successful in the process, and I as a constable did many years as a frontline officer, worked in several bureaus: homicide, drug squad, sexual assault squad, intelligence, homicide. So there's several areas that I've worked in, and obviously gained quite the experience with respect to my 30 years as a police officer. And during that period, again, I was just successful in going for promotions and so forth. After 30 years, here I am as an inspector for recruiting at this point.
Okay, and we're gonna 100% dive into that.
Okay.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks for that. Let's shift over to Constable Danny Marttini.
Okay, first of all, I really want to know that story. What started, how a negative experience got turned around and made you want to get into policing. So I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that is incredibly
right?
rare.
Yeah.
Incredibly
Like
rare.
usually it's That negative sets that tone, and it takes multiple interactions that are positive to ever change that. So that's pretty fantastic in itself.
It's pretty incredible.
But okay, that's enough about you. You know, I don't have no 30-year career here.
So why don't we find out about who?
So a quick background before I dive in, so to speak. I have 20 years on the job now. I was actually born in Peru, and then I came as a child, an infant, so to speak, but to Montreal. My family moved then more closer to the GTA area. I've moved around a lot throughout my life. Unlike Inspector Cooper here, my dream was never policing. I didn't see it. I actually went into social work. That was my schooling and my background. It was actually my older brother, who's also on the job with Peel.
Okay.
And
awesome.
he was the one that was like, we had those conversations of like, I felt like I hit a wall. I was like, you know, I picked this career, I wanted to go after it, but now I'm here and I'm not feeling a connection. Like, I don't know, it's not what I intended, even though I'd been working in it. So he was like, you know what? You have this great ability to talk to people, and that is a huge asset for you. And you can use that to work on any situation that you're in. Why don't you get into policing? There's so many avenues. You can do so much with it. And I was like, have you looked at me? Like this chair was making me tall. Yeah. You know, I'm like, I'm 5'1" on a good day. So I'm like, all right. And he's like, no, seriously. So I thought, you know what? Let me look into it, because I'm one of those people. I like to do my homework, so I looked into it. I looked into the organization. I only actually went for Peel, and here I am. And the great thing about it is I've been able to do so much with it, because you can do that. Like, no one says, oh, you become an officer, you're just a frontline officer. Well, first of all, that's a fantastic place because you learn everything. But then you can dive and go into any bureau that you want. You have that opportunity to apply and change and grow. You don't like this, that's okay. You go do something else. You put yourself out in a different section, you know. So unlike, you know, the inspector here, I may not have gone into homicide, but I did the front lines. I went into the RCIB. I tried out a little bit in frauds because you can do little tastes. You can go, can I do it? We call it a TT, a temporary transfer. So I go into that area, try it out for a little bit. You're like, connection, no connection? Maybe yes, maybe no.
How long would a TT be?
Usually it's like 3 to 6 months,
Yep.
you know, so sometimes they can get extended depending on what's going on, but it's a great opportunity. We can even do, you know, job shadows. I can ride along with another officer to try out their unit, even just for a day, just to see, is it going to spark that interest for me? And not every job allows you to go out and trial different fields, because that's what it is. Every area is its own little hub.
Right.
So like, obviously I'm out of our outreach recruiting now. Previous to that, I was in our media unit. Previous to that, I was in our training bureau. So I've worked with the recruits on the ground level. So I know what kind of people we're looking for. And obviously I've been out on the road. So I've been out there. I know what it takes. And I know there's the hardships. And I know the awesome, fantastic opportunities. And the experiences are just phenomenal. But it's an up and down. And is it for everybody? No. But it's about realizing that there's so much more to it than just what we see in the media.
Okay. Yeah, let me piggyback that. I think right now we're in a really unique time because of the pandemic. The pandemic, shook society. We talk about this all the time because we found so many people, I guess, hibernated out of necessity. But at some point, they just maybe chose to, I'm just going to stay off for now. You know, for the first time in their maybe professional careers, their working careers, they were outside of working. Okay. We're finding that it's really tough. We're trying to help people find their footing. Like, what is it? And I think that message is great, that you can make a total shift. We know this as a company, that we transferred from an area of security that we'd never done before, which was healthcare. We looked after close protection and corporate events. During the pandemic, that evaporated, literally. Like, 95% of our work evaporated in about 24 hours. So we had to pivot into healthcare. You know, what we had, a skill set of really great workers that understood, you know, how to be a good human. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is a hospital. A hospital needs good humans that are actually take the job seriously and will take care of the people that are there, because no one wants to be in a hospital. Right. It's a really challenging environment. So I think that's great to know, because if anyone's listening and you feel like you're on the shelf or you're not too sure what you want to do next, sometimes it takes someone who knows you well to say, like, look, have you tried this? Have you considered that? Because it might just be, I mean, that is amazing, because if you didn't have that conversation with your brother, there is a good chance you would, you never know.
You know what?
You never know.
I was actually looking at applying to a cruise line to be a social worker at the time. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like,
wow, polar opposites. Are you kidding me?
And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to put my application out here, but I'm going to train for this, which was policing. I'm going to train because I do believe like if you're going to do something, you got to go all the way. You can't go. It can't be a halfway. If you're committed to doing a new job or whatever it is, if I looked at the physical requirements, I broke it all down. I'm like, what do I need to do? Okay, I need to be able to do A, B, and C. Then I need to not only do A, B, and C, but I need E, F, G, and H on top.
Okay. Yes.
Because I believe you got to excel. You can't just be trying to hit that bar. You want to go above and beyond. So when you do go forward, they're like, that's who we want. Because I told myself, I'm going to give it all, and if it doesn't work, then it's not the right fit.
Okay.
But I do believe in giving everything. And 20 years later, I guess it fit.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we're going to dive into what everything is.
Awesome.
A fun fact, 1999, I'm going to bring us back into some memory lane here. 1999, a year after I graduated from Seneca King Campus College, Peel Regional Police was my first police force that I applied to. Okay. And I didn't get on. Okay, but I want
Cue the violins.
I want to share something.
Yeah.
The preparation that I put myself in to get ready for that. Now, look, in this day and age, you look at a 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old. I mean, I just think it was a different time frame. That's the most I'll say to be nice.
They're malnourished.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
go on.
they're malnourished. That's the way to be nice. But to me, at that time, it's just the maturity level, the thought process for myself. If I want to get on there, how am I going to prepare? So I remember, like, learning the geography of all of Peel, learning who the chief of police was at that time. I believe it was Noel Catney. Okay,
Yes, it was.
going down there,
Yeah.
just going through all that process and just getting myself ready. And I did the background, I did the physical, and I remember right at the end, after being interviewed by a panel, they told me, look, you just don't have the experience. That we're looking for. You just came out of college, go back out. Yeah. And when I went back out, I ended up getting a job with the City of Toronto in social work. So for me, and then I did that for 17 years before I ended up into where I am today.
So we switched.
I know.
Okay.
We switched.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I could be you,
Yes.
and you could be me.
There you go. There you go.
In a different universe.
Just a foot taller. That's it.
Yeah.
But
14 inches, actually.
But here's the thing. I remember that, and to this day, the things that I learned from there are things that we apply now within the organization. So because I had such a strong passion to get into policing, and I look, to see a police officer in uniform like I'm seeing you both today, it really kind of makes me, I'm like, I really need to fulfill this. Like, it's like so whether it be an auxiliary or something volunteer, it's something that lives
Are
in
you saying
me.
this now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
amazing.
100%.
I was like, you
Yeah.
can totally do
It
that.
hasn't stopped.
You can
Yeah.
totally do it.
100%.
100%.
Yeah,
And
Shaq's
It'd just be the wife yelling at me saying that all my time with business and now more commitments. But it is a passion thing to this day, has never ever died. And we talked
It's only 12 hours a month.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's it.
There
12
you
hours a
go.
month. You can do
Wow.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: when I look at what police officers are to the community and what they can do, and yes, in light of many years, there's been some ups and downs, like every organization.
Yep.
What you guys do, I am thankful for. You guys put yourselves on the line for basically to protect communities, to build communities, to develop, to do all these things. And I think what you guys do, when someone says, "I want to be a cop," they don't understand what it means to be I want a cop. That's why when we hear in the organization, when someone tells us I want to be a police officer, we've just put the magnifying glass right on them right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, great. Now that you've said that, you've disclosed that, we want to find out why and what it takes to do that. And they have to be careful with their responses, because we once had an individual that told us they wanted to be not only a police officer, but a chief of police, but they didn't want to work nights. Right? So again,
all said in one conversation.
I was like, that's a goal, right?
Yeah.
That's a goal
That's
to
a
get
goal.
to.
So know
That's
what
a
you
goal.
want. So why don't
they
we
didn't want to work nights.
why don't we kick up before? We can almost reverse it, but because we're kind of coming into the elements of recruitment, what you guys see every day. I think there's two ways we can look at this today in this conversation.
Yeah.
What people need to do to get themselves ready for policing, but what we also like to think is what you need to do with the little that you're given before you get to the many, the big, right? So, for example, in our organization, we tell our people, if you're having a hard time fulfilling the duties of your job right now, how do you think you're going to get even more responsibility and a gun and a commitment to the community, and you, if you're having a hard time right now? So it's the mindset. So why don't we just jump into that? Tell us what the mindset should be for people wanting to get into a career in policing, and you guys can jump in at any time.
Well, that's a great question, and so yes, you're absolutely right. I don't think everybody really thinks about in depth what it takes to do our profession. Okay, but what I will say is, it's life changing. It's life changing, and you have to be prepared to do that. You have to be prepared to change your life. And again, it's not. And again, I give the comparison. It's not like working at Walmart. It's not like working at a department store. Okay, this is something that's a little bit more pertinent to that, and it requires your mind, body, and soul. And I truly mean that. And in order for you to be psychologically prepared, to be physically prepared, and to, to experience the negative elements with respect to that. I mean, we can talk about another element with respect to the mental capacity and the mental health and all that kind of stuff. That's another show. I mean, that's in terms of how it's viewed now, as opposed to when I got on 30 years ago, that's another component. And
well, you said another show, so we're gonna do another show. Okay, go on. You were saying.
But you know what? You have to be, again, you're physically fit. You have to be mentally prepared to endure what is required of you, our expectation of you being a police officer.
And you have to be like that every shift. It can't be like you're going to do it once and then next week you're having a hard day.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
You know,
No.
it's funny because you mentioned the mindset.
Yes.
And it really is important because a lot of times it's situational. And I like to say, the people have the right mindset all the time, that we all come in like, you know what you're going to do. And but you don't. You don't always know what's going to happen or how it's going to unfold. So you have to be mentally prepared every single day when you go out and deal with anything. And if you are having an issue with something, or if you're getting, because new officers do they get stuck? Do older officers get stuck on things sometimes? Absolutely. And it's having that ability to say, hey, can you give me a hand with this? Can you break this down with me? Because this isn't working. So I need another path. I need another way to do this.
Because there's no manual.
That's, there isn't. Not when every day is different. You know, you can go to a domestic situation over and over again, and every single time you go, it's different. Why? People.
Exactly.
Yes.
People are different. People are unique on how they deal with situations. So if you have somebody in your profession that's, out there and they're struggling with a lower level item, there's nothing wrong with that. But identify it, work on it, and improve. Because if you can't do it with something that there isn't somebody's life depending on it, then how are you going to do it later on? So it's identifying that in yourself and realizing, you know what? I need that moment. I can reset. And then you go on forward and get stronger. But if you can't, then that's also something to identify and say, okay, maybe I've met my threshold. Like we have to know where our limits are, So
there's a saying that, okay, sorry. Andrew, you were going to say.
Don't say. And it's hard to, for instance, it's hard for a person to come into the policing culture and experience what we've experienced, because you have to be in it to understand it, right? But in order for you to be in a position where you can endure that, you have to be mentally and physically prepared.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
you
good.
can't take it lightly. Okay. So in terms of preparation. There's a saying, in order to know where to go, you got to know where you're starting, your starting point. Okay. We talk about this often, that it seems right now that not everyone who's entering the workforce really understands the demand of really hard work. I'm not sure if you guys share that sentiment. That aside.
Notice how we look at each other.
Yeah. For those listening, there was a real long look between the both of them. 1,000-yard stare there. That was great. Is there one thing aside from being adverse to really tough hard work? Is there something that you're seeing that right now that people need to shed before trying to step into a career in policing? That when you look, like, if you could just say to all the hopefuls out there, take note right now, okay? And if there's one thing that you could say first before they even get started, what would you say?
Well, one of the things I would say is, like for instance, it's Thanksgiving, right, in America, right? Christmases, birthdays. You're going to miss them.
Oh, I love it. It's a good setup.
not always and forever.
Yeah.
No, and she's absolutely right.
Right.
Not always and forever,
Right.
but I want you to be prepared.
Yes.
You're going to miss some.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Major snowstorm. This is just an example. Major snowstorm.
Yes.
Everybody else, 85% of the community say, I'm not driving because it's so terrible out there.
Right.
I can't go to work.
Right.
However, you have to go to work.
Right. Right.
You have to go to work. And there's the difference with respect to being mentally prepared for something that perhaps the community is not at par to do so. So those are one of the things that we really want you to get accustomed to in terms of being a public servant, because that's what you are.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh.
Very interesting, and it's so we know this, that thousands of people in the province are applying to be police officers on a regular basis, and we had a behind the scenes talk about stats that were used back in the early 90s, late 90s, about people that were going to these law enforcement colleges and schools. They were told that the percentage rate to get into policing, even after you complete your college career, is about 6%. And again, I'm not sure what the stat is right now, but
I think it's 3 now. That's
with,
what I've heard.
with that much,
it's low.
with that much competition, with that much people looking to get in, what is setting the difference between the person getting in and the person that is not?
Well, first off, college is not enough. Like having just education,
right?
For you to say, well, I've spent X many years educating myself.
Right.
Well, we are in a real world living everyday experience with people out on the road. So a book is fantastic. And I want you to be I want you to have things to pull from. I believe in resources. But you need more than that. You need real life experience. And that's why we always say we're looking at your educational background. We're looking at everything from your family relationships to your friend relationships, your work. Why do we look at that? Because that says something about who you are and how
Social
you manage
media.
things, right? Absolutely. We definitely look into that.
Yeah.
So these are all aspects that tell us what kind of individual you are and can you actually are you capable of doing this job? You know, if we're doing a background check and we're talking to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your supervisors, and we're seeing a pattern in some of the stuff they're telling us about you, then you're not the right one. Or they're telling us stuff and we're going, you are absolutely what we're looking for.
Yeah, right,
they're echoing what you have put forth.
Selfless,
But
or whatever.
that's exactly it, right? So education, no, it's not enough. Job experience, life experience, volunteer experience, that is what helps put you over the edge.
Can we unbox that? You know, what do you mean life experience? I've been alive. I'm 26. I you know, like I love my birthdays. I love my Christmases.
That's
and like,
sweet. You know,
that's a little facetious. Yeah. So what would you say? What's the answer to that? What life experience?
life experience is varied for everybody. So it could be a marriage, a death, growth, helping. So some people in their lives, they have to help raise their siblings. That's life experience in its own right. Some people have been in different jobs and been in supervisor positions, or they've been coaches, or they've been on sports teams and they're the team captains and they've led to victories and failures and victories. And it's that combination that shows that you are a leader in your own right throughout the different experiences you've had. And we put that all together and we're like, you are a strong candidate. You stand out because you didn't just go here. You didn't go just meet in that middle mark. You went above and beyond because that's your nature. Because let's be honest, if it's not in your nature to step out of your comfort zone, it would be hard to get into policing because what are we doing? We're getting out of our comfort zone. We can't always just say, oh, I hope it's just like this again today. No.
Yeah. And another example, like, I take myself, for example, leaving leaving London, England at a young age, being the oldest of 5 kids, raising my brothers and sisters, and moving from there to, to British Columbia, another province, then moving from there to Ontario. I mean, that's an example of terms of, lived experience. So that's the type of, examples we look for in terms of you being capable of doing things for yourself and for others.
And transitioning into new environments.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's a certain amount of resilience. Like
Yes.
not everybody has that, and that ability to grow and move forward and develop more as a person as you're going through these difficulties or different situations. That's huge.
Yeah, we recently hired 2 brothers. They're amazing. They have these great smiles on their face. And when you ask them, they're just, gratitude is all over them.
Yes.
And when one of our managers was talking with them, it comes out after being hired that they, just a couple of years ago, were in a refugee camp. For several years, they were in this camp. And they had to escape over the hills, ducking under gunfire to, leave and flee their home country.
So that's a great example.
So it's like,
Huge.
and then one of them says, like, I will be police. And we're like, yeah, you will be.
Yeah.
And we see that.
Yeah.
We see that eagerness. We see that during, I'm part of the final board reviews.
Okay.
And I sense that. I sense the passion. So examples like that, and especially when we sit down, I get the fact that, coming into a board review for the last stage of policing, or the last stage of you being, getting the job or not getting the job, that's what we want to see. I want to see that passion. I want to see that if you're given the opportunity, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm
What
going
are
to
you
say
gonna
something
do?
on that
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had a lady, which I was letting you guys know before jumping in here. We'll call her RH. Okay, and RH had found out through a friend about our company. He had said, hey, I really like working for them. So she said, you know what, maybe I'll try. And she had no real aspirations for anything other than just to work. I know that over the time, it started to reignite her desire to be, to be in policing, law enforcement. And because the way we approach the job is very similar. There's aspects of it that we approach that is very much a primer to someone who would want to walk into your circles. After about a year or so working with us, she just kind of like got even more focused. And you started to see that like it was not just a shift. She really had great intention behind everything she did. And I remember the pandemic hits, okay? We made some phone calls to see who's left, who's actually going to work. Because for us, even though we lost so much of our clients, we were able to, at least for a time, survive, provide work for a base amount of people. And this is like right when the lockdown, when everyone was basically locked up in their homes, and we were making those first calls. And I remember speaking with her, and I said, look, I know there's so much that we don't know. And we were kind of going, this is at the time where we didn't even know like which PPE was required.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone was on,
I know.
like who? No, World Health, or like everyone was like on their website trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
And, are these gloves good enough?
Yeah.
So she was asking like just some base questions. And I just said, hey, just give me an idea. Like there's no pressure. Just want to get an idea from you. And I'll never forget. She said, I want to be a police. If not me, who? She says, sign me up. I'm there. Okay. And like, oh man. And I remember, I remember there was something about like, she didn't say that for me. She said it to herself. I happened just to be on the phone, and she made that decision because the power's in the decision. She decided, I'm not going to shelter myself. I'm going to go forth with my desire, my dream, what I want to have happen. We start the pandemic, 6 months later?
Yeah.
6 months later of us working, and she worked all the frontline work. She finds out that she got picked up by PO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I gotta find out who this is.
Yeah. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah.
See, those are the type of stories that really resonate with us,
Mhm.
right? Reminds me of myself.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Danny.
Yeah.
In terms of her experience as well. But that's what we look for. This is not a situation where my current job, I don't like it, but I want to be a policeman because they pay well. That's not.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know we.
That's funny.
It's humor. It's funny, but that's what we see sometimes.
Right.
All right? And that's not what we're looking for.
Right.
I can honestly say, and Danny can speak for herself there, and I'm sure it's going to be along the lines of myself. This is not about the money. This is not a career. Yeah, it pays well, but in order for you to really, have that mindset and be successful in this line of work, it's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
We did a podcast with a gentleman named Mike Pannone, who is a major asset to the U.S. and his experiences was in the military, and we were at a protection conference, and being a police officer, you are a protector. That's the bottom line. And one of the things that we asked him is like, for people that want to be protectors, how do you know if you're a protector? And he referenced one thing. He says, the example, if you're in your car and, you could be in IT, you can be in any profession, and something happens, maybe a car accident happens, someone's about to do something, maybe try to kill themselves, whatever, and you jump in naturally, without hesitation, you are a protector, okay? And that is in your innate nature to help others. Right, where others may be like, well, I'll do it if I get paid. When I hear things like I don't get paid enough,
Or
to
don't
do
look,
this,
just keep driving.
yeah,
Keep driving.
exactly. Or pull your phone out to record someone
No,
dying.
no.
It's the worst.
Right. When anybody falls
my
into those categories, and there's a lot of people that do, you're not doing it for the right reasons. Now, you said something. You said that you are able to almost like smell an individual how much he wants it and how genuine
Sense.
it
He
is.
said sense. Not
Sense.
necessarily
Well,
smell.
Here's
I get
we're
it.
not going around
It's like
smelling
what you're
people.
saying.
I sense.
Scratch and sniff. Scratch and sniff.
That's right. Yeah. So the reason what I love about that is because whenever, and then for anyone listening now, you're going to get some behind the scenes what we look for. Whenever anybody walks into this office, and look, I can say this very confidently as being on the executive levels with Sentinel Security, many security companies are not doing it for the right reasons. I know this for factual. They're doing it more for the business. What we're trying to do is change the game. We're trying to revolutionize. I say this all the time. It's not new. We're trying to revolutionize the security industry. We're trying to make it better, to make it people to be proud in what they do. And when somebody walks in here and they come in, the first thing I'll tell them is, look, have you heard of us before? No, I haven't. Okay, that's fine. We'll move on. We start going into what we're about. We have them watch a video that's about 13 minutes long that basically breaks down everything and what our expectations are, who we are as a company, what we do, the whole 9 yards. And there's a timer at the end of this video, because the timer is there for, we know some people are not going to resonate with this message. They're just looking to get paid and move on. And those are the people we want to avoid as much as possible. And I say that because what we're trying to do is for us to change the game. What we're trying to do is find people that have those qualities. And we tell them what we're looking for is people that have humility, which equates to having a teachable spirit, and those people that have good work ethic. And if you can demonstrate those two things, we don't care about your security experience that you have. We have people that are ex-police officers coming in and trying to apply. Like, I respect your history of work, but what we're looking for is an open book that we can kind of mold, which is where the humility comes into play, which guess what? So do the police, the exact same way. It doesn't matter how many years of college or university that you have. If we can't pour into you because of your ego and you know it all, you're an obstacle. So I love the fact that you're able to kind of like sense that as well. Can we just maybe go into how important it is for people in their closest reference of work that they're working at right now, what they should be doing in their work? And again, you don't have to be security to get into policing. You can be a teacher. You can be a coach. You can be a social worker. You can be whatever, and then transition there. But what should they be doing in their body of work? Just in general.
What they should be doing is the best they can at that job.
Okay.
Because it does, and again, we can elaborate on that. It doesn't matter the background per se, because with respect to policing, I mean, it's so diverse in terms of what individual. Danny, for instance, social worker. We have teachers. We have ex-football players. We have engineers, IT people. And the spectrum is broad. So it doesn't matter what type of work you're doing. What matters is that your work ethic is conducive to what we're looking for. And that's the best I can kind of articulate it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're looking for someone that obviously is a go-getter. So if we're doing a reference check and we're talking to your most current supervisor and they're saying they don't show up on time, they drag out the work, something that could be done in like 20 minutes becomes an hour-long project, breaks all the time. Like, hey, I get it. You want a break here and there. I respect that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like you need to be there to get your job done. And you should be doing it, like you said, to the best of your ability, to the highest quality. Why do it 20 times over if you can do it one time right?
There you go. So above and beyond is important.
Yeah.
Having an above and beyond mentality.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what separates you from the 6 or the 94%. That's what separates you, going above and beyond. What's going to make you stick out? That's amazing, man. What would you say is an obstacle for people? I mean, obviously, you said what things you can cut. What are obstacles that you see on a day-to-day basis? People say, "Man, I can't get on. I don't know what it is." Like, you see it all the time. You hear it. What would you say those obstacles are?
That's a very broad question, because that's a case by case.
Okay.
Especially with respect to my experience in dealing with individuals at that last stage of the process, and it ranges. Again, we've already mentioned some of them. In terms of life experience, things that are sometimes hard to explain. That's just not fitting.
Okay.
On paper, this particular candidate looks fantastic, phenomenal. This is the type of people, the type of person that we need on the service. But there's just something in there that is not flush in terms of going above and beyond and fitting into the culture. Because here's the thing, I don't want to put that person at a disservice as well. Because not only will we be putting the organization at a disservice, it puts themselves at a disservice. So again, it's case by case, but and it could be a multitude of things.
I mean,
it's not just one.
Because that's the responsibility. It's not about being charitable. It's not about just being like, let's be nice to them and push them through.
Yeah, there's no benefit there. And
Yeah.
if we're really looking at, and I remember I come in at a different level when it comes to the whole, I'm looking for the people, I'm talking to people on the ground floor. I'm watching them when they come in for their first fitness testing, because that's part of our requirements, right? So people go online, they submit their application, they've got their OACP, we're like, that's awesome, great, you have to have these things. They're the minimum requirements for just getting in,
Right.
just to put it in. And then it gets reviewed. And then we're like, okay, they look good on paper. So we're like, let's bring them in for the fitness test. Okay, here's my theory. If you apply for something, you should be ready for absolutely everything on that job requirement list and then some. If you're not, it makes me wonder, why did you apply?
Okay.
So people will then come in for the fitness. We call them, we schedule them, they book them, they come in, and they don't pass. Why?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, and it isn't one of those things where people are coming in and not passing and they're like just on the line.
Yeah.
You know, so we have a shuttle run you're probably familiar with,
Yep,
right? It's called
yep.
beep test, beep,
Yep,
beep, 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 beep,
yep.
beep. So 7 is that minimum requirement for whatever gender you are. 7.
And by the way, the test right now that you guys do, I know it's not the same back in 1999 where we
That's
had to
correct.
do push-ups and
Yeah,
bench
they
press,
don't-
and
no,
you had to
nothing.
bench your own weight to
Nothing.
get certain. Yeah, you did that.
We all did the same test.
all did,
We all
right?
did the same test.
Oh yeah, it was so much harder. Like
Yeah.
to me, this should be like a walk in the park. But anyways, I don't
No,
know if
that's
I'll-
exactly
but
my
yeah,
point.
Yeah.
If you thought, hey, I want to become a police officer, you do your homework.
Right.
What's the expectation?
Research.
What do I need to do?
Yes.
Okay, I need this kind of education. I should have some volunteer that shows regular dedication to, to whatever area of you're choosing.
Yes.
And I need to be physically fit and mentally fit, right? Like those
Right.
go hand in hand, I find,
Right.
right? And you come in because you've passed everything so far and they're like, yeah, come on in. All right, you book that test. And you don't pass, and it isn't even a fact of you don't pass and you're just on the line. These are people that flat out don't pass. I'm like, you have not trained for this.
Right.
And then we get, with COVID, I couldn't go to the gym. And I'm like, outdoors.
Yes, that's
Outdoors. You go running, you got push-ups, you got arms.
Watch Rocky
you,
IV.
there are things to go up those stairs.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
get creative.
That's
And
right.
but that tells me something about you. Did you get creative? Because in our job, we have to get creative sometimes in the sense of, okay, I can't get into the house this way. We're going to have to come at it a different way. Hey, I'm talking to this person. I'm meeting a wall. Okay, I need to take a step back, reassess how I'm approaching this person and come up with a different, and it has to be on the fly. I don't have time to go, and can I read about it? Can I look it up? No, I have to work then and there with what I have.
That's good.
So if I have somebody coming in for a fitness test that they knew they were going to have to do, and they can't pass.
Yeah, they're ill
Yeah,
prepared.
that tells us a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right?
but they want it.
But they want it.
But they want
But
it.
how bad did you want
and
it?
they're passionate about
exactly.
it. And I had a dream last night that I'm going to be a cop.
And I was like,
And I
okay.
Okay.
Did you run on a treadmill while you were
Yeah,
sleeping?
No, that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
exactly.
You know?
You got to think outside the box, and that's the
right.
type
Yeah.
of things we're looking for.
Yeah.
As Danny said earlier, situations not always the same, and we need those individuals to be quick thinking. In terms of your analytical reasoning
Yeah.
piece, we need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a lot. It's not easy being being in the profession that we're in. It's not easy, and it's not for everybody. I get that.
Right.
But if you really want it, you'll know exactly what our expectations are.
Yeah.
Come correct,
Good.
right? Come correct.
Open book.
Give yourself an opportunity, right?
How many years experience would you say if someone said, "Hey, okay, I need the experience," how many years experience would you say is considered, a good amount to say, you have this to kind of move into there? Because someone would say maybe if I just could do 2 weeks of volunteer work, 1 week with the church, then maybe a year doing a job, I'm ready. Like, how much do you guys think in your experience,
Well,
And
if we're
everyone's different.
looking at volunteer,
Yeah.
volunteer is something that you're giving, right? You're giving yourself and your time. So I will never say hours because it depends on the type of volunteer that you're doing. But I want something that shows a regular, ongoing commitment. Not something I started 2 weeks ago. Not something I even started 6 months ago when I thought, I might want to get into policing. I want to show that this is part of your nature. This is something you've been doing over a long course of time. That speaks more. Don't get me wrong. If we see on a resume somebody just started volunteering, I'm not going to say, okay, well that's still better than nothing.
Right.
But then I see another applicant, same resume otherwise,
Yeah.
but it shows me that they have been consistent.
For the last 12 years.
Exactly.
daily.
Exactly.
You know what that tells
Yeah.
me? That's their nature.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's in their DNA. That's what we
Yeah.
want. That's what we want.
No, amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look,
I mean,
go
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was saying there's so much things that I think people can kind of take away from this and actually apply to themselves. There's also been stories of people that police hop, right? From service to service, right? Yeah. Is there anything that for them that someone could be doing if they're not successful, right? Because I mean, we've had a fair amount of people that get on the police force, and it makes us very, very proud to know that we were part of their development. Then we also know there's some that struggle and hit those walls all the time, and they do jump from police force to police force, not realizing there's also a network of shared service, right? In that setup, what advice would you give for someone that has been rejected a couple of times? I understand back in the days, I'm not sure if it's the same in Toronto, so the Police Service Act, they can't really disclose why you did not go through. I mean, specifically if it's...
You would have to almost start looking at each individual first, and where is it that they're hitting that wall?
Okay.
Is it the moment they hand their application in, they don't get anything back? Because then that's right there alone on your application.
Exactly.
Something you've got flags, for a better term, that are coming up that say, nope, you're not making those. So then you'd have to review what are the minimum requirements, and keeping in mind, like, so for instance, if one of the minimum requirement is post-secondary, okay, well, what level? Did you go further? Because if you're, again, only hitting the bare minimum, but everybody else is, levels above, well, you don't stand out at all. So no, you won't get past that.
That's good.
If on the other hand, it's every time you meet with a recruiter, you're getting cut, well, then something's wrong with your interviewing skills probably.
Right.
Or you're going to have to do that self-reflection and say, what questions have they been asking me? What did I give as my examples? And clearly there's something lacking there. Or maybe something you did in your past is not sitting quite right. And let's be honest, there are certain things you can't undo, and you have to live with that moving forward. But it's also we believe people make mistakes, but how do you change that and make it into a positive as you grew as an individual? And if you can't show that, then you're not there.
Right? Beautiful.
And again, sometimes it's a self-awareness piece.
That's what this sounds like.
Self-awareness. You know what? Nobody knows yourself as well as yourself. You know yourself. And depending on the stage that the process stops, that's when you should be asking yourselves, okay, well, this has been, kind of routine in terms of the where I've been stopped or where the process has ended. So I think, Danny hit the nail on the head. It's definitely a self-awareness piece.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely self-awareness. And again, don't go for the minimal. Always have in your mind that, I have to do better than the person beside me.
Well, I mean, that's key, because you're looking for people who are in tune with themselves. Because when they walk into very difficult situations, whether it's domestic, something violent or potentially violent, if they don't know who they are and their strength and their ability to communicate, they won't be able to be good on the job. So I think that's what's kind of unique, because we do hear it like, man, I got to this point in the process. I don't know what happened.
You know what? I think there's another just fantastic point, and with respect to our chief Duriapa, he's always making us aware as officers, if we're not good on the inside, we cannot be good on the outside.
Oh wow, that's powerful.
Okay, and that's his message.
Yeah,
and it's constant.
And look, to me, that's key. That's key. I want to shift very slowly into training right now, and also just kind of more about development. So for us as an organization, again, as referenced, we have had our people move on into better opportunities with policing, and that is something that is by design. A lot of people that apply to the organization know that we've continued to, kind of have this reputation that if you come in here and have a good body of work, the likeliness and chances of you succeeding to get your goals, it doesn't have to just be policing, are strong. With that being said, training is huge for us as an organization, and the security industry as a whole is suffering tremendously from that, where most people that are in the industry are just basically hired and put to the front lines. But you're doing something that, again, is very similar to policing, which is basically protecting, right? Whether it be asset or human being. With that said, I know, Danny, we're talking about kind of training that we do, right? So we adopted a training philosophy by a gentleman named Steve Somerville, who was with the Toronto Police for 25 years. And he was one of the head trainers for COB College, Steve Somerville. And his program is called Stay Safe. And Stay Safe is basically a program that's broken up into 5 sections: management of resistance behavior, effective communications, use of force, sharp-edged weapons, handcuff, and batons. Now, we adopted all that training when we jumped into healthcare. And prior to that, what we did a lot of our training was on-site training, right? It was almost like, you're going to be put in this area, you're going to be with some senior people, because we found that really worked. But we wanted to really up our game. We truly love to train our people. On top of the training that we provide them, we also introduced scenario-based training, which is as soon as you're finished doing all your training now, we've had actors, we usually use sometimes office staff, but we use and we recreate scenarios, and let's push you to the test.
And we film it. We film it as game tape to review.
Oh, good.
That's
That's
right.
smart, yeah.
And we actually,
That's really good.
I won't say what we're about to do because they're going to release it.
Yes.
But it's in that move. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
Another thing that we do is, again, the physical activity, the physical element of well-being is huge for us. So we use our training space as a training space. We drop mats down. We have 2 incredible personnel of ours that do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they teach a lot of ground gaming and stuff. But we open up our facilities so people can get there and get help training with whatever they need to do. But for us, it's all about the development, okay? Let's talk about training when it comes to the police force.
Okay.
Obviously, we know that you're going to go through this very in-depth training. What is it, 12 weeks or is it 50?
Well, OPC, and
Yeah.
again, Danny's going to be, she'll give a really good perspective
Okay.
because she was part of the training for
Yeah.
quite some years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she'll give you a very good perspective.
All right.
Yeah,
Jump
our training covers everything. It's very broad because a lot of times people think of, it's just the Ontario Police College, right? And again, every service has their own additional training that they do. So for us, we're looking at it's actually about 4 to 5 weeks that they're going to do above, like prior and after.
Yes.
So we have before training. So before they even go to the Ontario Police College, they're coming in. We're getting them used to what the system is like, some of the language, the criminal code. We cover all that. And of course, we have daily fitness. We have daily fitness, and we do our basic, we call it IRT training. So that's into their use of force. And really, it's soft,
Yes.
but it's because they want to get them started.
Okay.
Then they go to the police college. They do all the training that's required there, which is fantastic. And then all goes well, they pass and they come on back to us, and then our training continues. So we say, okay, well, you got this. We want to take it to the next level now because we want to give you a lot more of that real life stuff. We're going to go over that report writing. We're going to go over that scenario base. So the fitness still continues on a daily basis, plus that use of force training. They level all of that up because they want to get them fully qualified, fully comfortable. They still do additional driving as well. So we call it our PVO, our police vehicle operations, right? So they're going and doing all of this. Why? Because we're trying to bring these officers very quickly up to the grade. And then doesn't end there. So you think, okay, you're sworn in, poof, you're on your own. No, of course not. I can't throw you out on the road and just let you fly. That's not going to happen. That's not fair to you. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to the community. So you go out with a training officer, right? We call those FTOs, our field training officers. You're out there in the cruiser. You have somebody that's seasoned, someone that's been around, someone's going to show you the ropes, how to do everything. They're going to break it down. They're going to explain everything to you. They're going to, as it's obviously something I've done. I'm sure you did the same thing at some point in your career. You were walking people through the everyday. Okay, look, we're listening to the radio. Here's the call. They're actually a designated unit, so they can actually pick calls to take off the road.
Right.
So they can, depending on the level of where they are in their training, the training officer can be like, we're here. So we're going to take that call. We're going to take that. We're going to keep doing these calls until we get a better understanding of how to break them down, how to work with the individuals, how to write up because everyone thinks, oh, it's just the road, but it's not just the road. You still got to do all the paperwork afterwards every single time. You got to write it all out. You got to submit everything. It gets rejected. You have to do you have to fix it. You got to resubmit it. So it's an entire process unto itself.
How do you find this generation of people coming into policing right now compared to the generation maybe 20 years ago? Has there been a change? Have people, I don't know if the word softer or mentality shift or expectation or entitlement, have you guys noticed that at all?
I like your last two.
Okay.
The expectation and entitlement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, it's just changed.
Yeah.
It's changed.
It is.
But here's the thing: it's all relative. It's all relative. Just me now, having the opportunity to look back of my 30 years, policing's changed, and that's why I say it's relative. The community's changed. We are reflective of the community, and as such, yes. Back in my day, there were guys who were just steadfast in their convictions with respect. I want to be a police officer, and I'm going to do everything that it takes for me to do that. Whereas today, we're getting more individuals from different backgrounds, right? As opposed to myself, specific. This is specific. I'm going to be a police officer, and my peers, the people I worked in security with.
Right.
It's a little different.
Okay.
It's a little different. And again, I consider that, it's relative with respect to the change in policing, to the change, the mindset of the community. So it's all encompassed.
Well, look, the hopes is that, again, when anybody listens to this, that it will trigger something and get them to basically turn a negative into a positive, which transitions us into a negative into a positive.
Story,
The
yes.
story,
The dropping of the seed right at the beginning.
So let's find out what that thing was that kind of shifted for you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Back in the 80s, back in South London, it was quite tumultuous. As I said before, the police and the members of the community, the racialized community, South London at my time was quite racialized. In quite a few vulnerable areas in terms of where I've come from, a vulnerable area. And again, as I said before, the relationship wasn't good. To the point where, I witnessed one of the worst riots in British history at that time, back in '82, and it was called the Brixton Riots. And this was an eruption between racialized people and the police. And this is because, the sentiment at the time was somewhat oppressive. Felt that the racialized community felt that, they weren't being treated fairly as a result of the constant negative interaction with the police at that time. And from my personal experience, coming home with a few individuals from football practice and just being stopped. Now, you've matched the description of somebody just calls a break and enter. I know about just coming from football practice.
How old would you be at that time?
About 12, 13.
Okay.
And no, you match the description. Now, what's your name? Where'd you live? Right? And again, you don't realize the impact because it was normal. It was normal. Every time I put my foot outside my house, my mum says, Andrew, be careful. That conversation. If a policeman stops you, this is how I expect you to behave, because it was a norm. I mean, the school in my area back in South London, I'm not sure if anybody's listening from Spencer Park, South London, Battersea, Tooting, Wandsworth. Right? That was normal. That was normal to the point where it erupted.
Okay.
All right. So that's my background in terms of coming from that type of environment. And again, with respect to that seed, because in the back of my mind, I always said, that's not the way, if I was in that, not to say that I wanted to be a policeman at that point in time, but it really, initiated, my thought process in terms of, what, that's not how we treat people. That's not how we treat, members of the community with respect to that inequity, not being fair to members of the community.
Right.
So that's how my career started. It was a negative impact. And again, with the thought process of wanting to do better. I wanted to do better.
You wanted to be a part of the change.
I wanted to be part of the change. And
Right.
that is the truth.
Right.
That is the absolute truth. And again, it was a progression, because when I left England, when I came to Canada, and just saw the difference in terms of how the police were in England to how the police were in Canada, there was a difference. There was a difference.
Multicultural, obviously.
Yeah, it was different. It was
Right.
really different. And again, I've just witnessed such violence, amongst with the police and the members of the community at the time. It was refreshing to see the difference in Canada that it was in England. And again, what perpetuated, my image or how I perceived myself is in Prince George, British Columbia. And there's an RCMP officer, don't remember his name, but I remember the day very, very specifically. It was a big black man. It was a big black RCMP officer. I looked at this guy and I said to myself, that's me. That's Andrew Cooper. And you know what? It drove me. It was in my inner core. So you know what? That's how I'm going to look. Right? And it just propelled from there. Right? And I've taken that experience because I know there's others out there who will look at me the same way, who will look at Danny the same way. And that's what we're out doing.
This is good, man.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
And, you know, in terms of me coming into recruiting, that's the perception. That's my expectation because I know what worked for me. Danny knows what worked for her.
Right.
And we're going to do the same strategy, the same methods to attract the people that I know will do well within our organization.
What's incredible about that is you had a childhood experience that showed a gaping hole in what needed to happen. There's a saying, don't complain about the problems you permit. So even as a child, you saw this is a problem and you thought there's a better way. That's simple. You know, wherever that came from, I think it's incredible. Then at some point, you saw yourself in that position through this RCMP officer. So it's like you saw that it could be better. Then you saw, oh, this is how I need to be in order to be a part of that change. You know, I think, I mean, I'll tell you this, if whether you've been told that we're all unique snowflakes, but, you know, air quotes there, but your experience is incredibly inspiring because so many people would just say that problem, those police, and they would just give up. They would be, if anything, they would maybe take the other stance. And this is the reason why I hate cops. This is why I listen to Cop Killer and F the Police and whatever, right? Because they had an experience. They just thought what makes your outlook, it's true power. Yeah. Because you're not powerless. Because in all those moments, you feel powerless. That's what...
Absolutely.
You know.
And the thing is, my message to those individuals, you know, because I've spoken to them. And again, sometimes it's not that specific individual who feels that way, but they take on a persona of the people around them.
Absolutely.
Deep down inside, maybe they do want to be police officers, but the people, as a result of that negative group, I wouldn't be a police officer, blah, blah, you know what I mean?
That's the power of culture. That's the culture and the belief.
It's so strong. It's so powerful. And here's the thing, you know, growing up where I grew up, you know, again, vulnerable area, it's all about respect. Like, it was volatile, but you know what? I grew up knowing that, listen, you can't just go around disrespecting man. You got to respect people.
Yes.
And I always said to myself, listen, as a policeman, you've got to respect people. That has been an intrinsic piece of myself over three decades in terms of dealing with members of the community.
Yes. We've
got to respect each other. When I deal with people, I deal with them professionally and I deal with them respectfully.
Yeah.
And again, that's what we look for. And that's what I'm saying. You know, when we're looking for potential candidates in terms of being a policeman, there's things we can't teach you. There's things that was innate in me.
That's right.
And it's as a result of me being raised by a single parent and raised by my very strong Jamaican mother.
Shout out to the
I was
Jamaican
gonna
moms.
say this respect factor came from somewhere.
Yes.
Right? So being raised in that environment in terms of, you know, a very strong Jamaican culture, you know, in terms of being respectful, dress well, be clean, speak to people correctly, carry yourself proudly, Andrew. Those are the things that is kind of just perpetuated in terms of how I am with members of the community. That wasn't taught. That was taught. That was from your childhood. That was from your you know, the initial upbringing.
Yeah.
That's right.
We don't teach you that.
You can't.
Yeah.
We don't teach that at the police college.
If you didn't grow up with that mentality,
No, right?
if that wasn't developed in you, it's very hard to start integrating that into somebody as an adult.
100%.
Because you have already whatever other traits you have been brought up with, unfortunately. Like, and that's it. Our experiences, right? It goes back to your experiences.
They really shape you.
Help shape exactly what kind of individual. But that said, equally, he identified certain things and said, I don't want to be like that. I respect, but equally, I don't demand respect because I have to be respectful. I have to give it. I have to treat everybody like that. One can't just walk in and think, oh, I'm in uniform, so you have to respect me. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, we've seen it. I've seen it personally go awry.
Yes.
When someone thinks that,
And let me share something else with you. And again, you know what? You know, working in such a diverse area, you know, there are certain unfortunate circumstances with respect to, you know, at-risk youth. I get it. I was there. Don't always fall into that stereotype. You know, and I'm always an advocate for that. I mean, I'm very entrenched in the community, and I want to set the example. Listen, just because you know from a single parent family, underprivileged per se, that doesn't negate the excuse, right? Listen, when I was going to school, there was people doing things that perhaps you shouldn't be doing. Well, not perhaps, shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
Right? And I know that environment, right? I know where they've ended up. I know that, but it doesn't mean that you had to go down that road.
That's right. You had a choice.
Right? It's your choice, mate. I know. Yeah, you know what? I know how peer pressure is. I get it. I understand. So that's my narrative when I speak to people. I'm not just being a hypocrite and say, do this, do that, don't do. I come from there.
That's
I understand. And if you need an example, look at me.
Yes.
Look at me.
Yes.
Is it hard work? Yes, it is. It's hard work. But if you persevere, you will be successful.
Yeah, I think there's something like, look, we're on the outside of it because we're not police. But in terms of strengthening the relationship of cops who have come under high scrutiny over the last 2 years, more than ever before, that it is that simple message that you said, be that example. I mean, we've heard from police circles, people that we know, there's even there going through this, they're like, oh man, civilians, they don't understand. And there's almost an indignancy that they can't swallow because they just think the public's wrong. They don't know our job.
Yeah.
Okay, but we know there's so many truths to that. Like
there is, but not to that
true.
level of.
No,
as a human, I wouldn't understand what somebody's going through. That there are different struggles that individuals have, and it's that reminder that I have to value you.
Yes.
And your experiences. I can't just wash it away and say it doesn't count because you haven't lived my life or you're doing do my job. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's amazing when you think of it and it's interesting that you mentioned your mother and that growth that you get because I remember the one thing that's always stuck with me about growing up, and I pushed those boundaries when I was a kid. It was my parents were separated, so my mom was like that also the person for me, and she would always say to me is, I will never tell you not to hang out with somebody. I won't choose your friends for you, but look at them because whatever they are, however they are, that's you.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
And you look around, and that's that self-reflection. You look around, you look inside yourself, and you're like, is that what I want to be like?
Yeah.
Look,
that's amazing.
I think it's amazing how you guys have such a great selection process. I do 100% agree with you both about, where you came from, and your experiences do play a lot in how you are as an individual. This morning I heard, for those of you that may know or may not know, Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, he's one of their top players. He's a player that basically came into poverty in Greece from Nigeria, his whole family, but they moved to Greece. And they were, dealing with very, very hard times and money, all the food that went to the kids. I had a family of 5. And, his story is he ends up getting into the NBA, being one of the top 5 players. But he was saying in an interview this morning that growing up as a kid, he always would see kids take Oreo cookies and dip them in the milk. And he tried it for the first time in a film shoot. And he goes, oh, my God, he was explosive because experience. But his humility and his good nurture of what he came from, his work ethic translated so differently. So to me, I think it's important. Look, we've had some amazing people come from like England and Brazil and other countries, and they come with a very different expectation of what they need to do for work. They go so far above and beyond. One of the gentlemen that is with you guys right now, Lucas Lima. You guys know Lucas?
We'll introduce you to.
Okay.
From Brazil. Yeah.
From Brazil as well.
Yeah.
Amazing story. But at the end of the day, from what he came from into the country, he came with such a desire to go so far and above and beyond because that's what is needed. So
he's done it.
And he's done it. And he's an actual living testimony. I want to thank you guys both for coming on today. I think there's some incredible nuggets here that anyone that listens to will help filter and hope. The hopes is that somebody will apply to you that has everything that you guys are basically saying today to make the community a better place, to make the police experience a better experience. And what we want to do is our commitment to every police organization in the province is that what we're trying to do is find the best, to develop them, and also nurture them to become another level.
I love it. You develop them, get them started, and then we'll take them.
100%.
Hold on, no, it's not. We didn't say
love
that.
that.
We didn't say that.
I take them.
Hold on, we should charge the police a finder's fee.
And can you find more littles like me, more females?
100%.
You know,
We have some
Yeah.
amazing females.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and that's so you know, it's a request that not only obviously it's a request within policing, but
Yeah.
in the security industry as well. Having some very good women.
I think in our
strong.
new hires, I mean, this is no stat, but in the last 6 months with this kind of new hiring wave, and there is a shortage of people willing to work,
Right.
it's over 50% that are female.
Yes.
Right? Oh, in
That's
the
right.
last 6 months.
100%.
Guaranteed.
Wow.
No jokes.
That
We-
is
yeah,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
we
that
have
is,
a
that
couple
is.
days a week. We have training always happening.
Yeah.
And you look at the classes easily 3 of 5.
That's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
2 of 3.
Yeah,
That's very
like-
good.
Yeah.
Give yourself a round of applause.
Yeah,
man.
it's
That's
pretty
very
amazing.
good.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I thank you for that. So for us, again, thankful for everything that you guys have brought, and
Thank you.
and we 100%. I'm telling you, this guys right now, prepare for a round 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to throw my 2 cents in
Yes.
here where
Yeah.
I think, to have a really great police relation and for things to get better, you need great police, right? It starts there.
Yeah.
And this whole process. And I say to all those that are considering, do the work, do the self-reflection, be self-aware, ask yourself the difficult question. Yes, your mom and dad will love you regardless. Outside of your home, work on who you are, who you are, your essence. I love that quote you said about your chief that, you need a healthy inside. You need to be good on the inside to be good outside.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
take that time. I mean, we live in such a fast-paced life that, man, it's a shame. We have people, even us, we feel it. You feel the stress and the strain of life. Be good to yourself,
Self-care.
self-care. Reacquaint with the thing that you love, and maybe you'll be able to find a career that you really love too.
Absolutely.
And, so
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
guys,
you.
Thank you
and,
so much for
it's been a
having us.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, it's
Awesome.
been fun. Okay, let's do
Perfect.
round 2. Can we do it right now? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.